Hi everyone, welcome to the Babylons. Today we're going to talk around our quarterfinal opponents, that is KAA Gent. So stay tuned and hopefully you enjoy the tactical breakdown we're about to do for you. Today we're going to talk about KAA Gent, our quarterfinal opponents for the Europa League conference. So obviously we got through our last round with a very convincing win over AEK Larnaca. We are probably now facing the first genuine quality of the competition. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of talk through who Gent are, how they play, maybe how the things that we maybe need to be aware of as a team, and some of the things that we could do in which to counter those pieces from them. But before we get into that, really kind of who are our opponents. So Gent, not to be confused with Genk. Genk is the team that we played last season in the Europa League in the group stage. This is a completely different team. We are playing KAA Gent, otherwise known as the Buffaloes, hence why they also have the Native American chief as part of their emblem. That badge has been that way since around about the 70s. They are obviously two separate teams, very similar names, very similar colours, but they are totally different teams as well. In the league this season, we can see that Gent is doing quite well. They are currently fifth in the league. They are in fairly decent form, obviously having lost only one game in their last five. They lost that game 2-0. Again, they're in a good run of form. They're obviously been doing well in Europa Conference as well. In the Europa Conference, they came second in their group. They happened to beat Mulder 4-0 in the final game of the group stage in which to go through. For quite a comprehensive final game win, they managed to progress into the next round of Europa League Conference. In the knockout stages of the Europa League Conference, their first opponents were Karabakh, who they beat on penalties overall, losing the first game 1-0 and then ultimately winning the next leg 1-0 themselves, and they went through 5-3 on penalties. In the previous round, they beat Istanbul Başakşehir, who were the actual winners of Group A, a group that also contained Fiorentina. Overall, they beat Istanbul Başakşehir 5-2 on aggregate, which was even more impressive by the fact that they won 4-1 in the second leg. What was impressive in the 4-1 demolishment is the crazy few minutes of the game where there was a 4-minute hat-trick managed by a young player called Gift Orban, who is a Nigerian player who has come from the Norwegian League and has obviously joined them in the January window, which leads us into, a player to watch. And a player to watch is known as Gift Orban. Now, he joined the team in January transfer window for approximately £2 million. As we say, he scored a hat-trick in the previous round against Istanbul Başakşehir. At the age of 20, the Nigerian has been in blistering form this season. As we can see, he's played 9 games in total for Genk. And not only has he only played those 9 games, he's also scored 12 goals. Prior to that, playing in the Norwegian League, he played 19 games, scored 16 and assisted 6. So it's fair to say that he is in incredible form this season. We are likely to do another video specifically on Gift Orban, talking around the threat that he can pose. What we can say here is that he is incredibly quick as a player, has good intelligent movement. He is also physically strong, and he is deadly given a chance in front of goal, whether that be with his left foot, his right foot, or even with headers. And very natural striking with either foot and strikes cleanly. So he will definitely be a player we will have to be aware of. And we'll kind of go through kind of the things that we need to be aware of when we play them as well, and their overall threat, not just this one player. So it's important now to kind of say, well, how do they line up? What kind of team are we expecting to face? Gent like to play in a 5-2-1-2 formation, or if you will, a 3-4-1-2 formation. It does mean and lead to them being at times fairly narrow. But it does also mean that they tend to have a numerical superiority against defenses, especially when they're playing a back four. They tend to remain quite compact as a kind of front three, which does again also mean that they can create fantastic overloads against the opposition and utilize that again as part of a high press strategy. If we take this as an example as to one of the games that they played in this season, we reviewed the past 5 games to get a good understanding of them, and taken some clips from a couple of games in which to highlight how they play tactically, and to then kind of go through and discuss where we need to be aware as West Ham as to their strengths, and how we can potentially look to then exploit that, and how we have to, again, look to counter that action. Now, obviously, this is their defensive shape in kind of slow build-up. As you can see here, there's some very distinct, clear lines. So an example, really, if we was to kind of take this screenshot and then obviously kind of map into where our players could be in which to look to kind of take some sort of advantage, it could be something like this. And ideally should be pushing both of our fullbacks high, pressing those directly onto their wing backs. This obviously then makes it kind of a 1v1, and it also means that we have the ability to invert the likes of Bowen and Benrahma with, say, Scamacca. We're assuming Scamacca starting. Again, it could be Antonio, it could be Ings. The principle will apply regardless of the striker. But essentially, by inverting both of our wingers, we can then kind of go for a 1v1 against each one of their centre-backs. Pushing up the likes of Soufal and Emerson, again, means that they have to go 1v1 in those places. This then gives us the opportunity to either utilise Souček or even Paqueta as a player coming from deep, in which to get behind their midfield too, and then obviously looking to break in the line. Essentially, we have in this situation, we have the ability to either play into the likes of Soufal, again, to play over into the channel between the left centre-back and the left wing-back for Bowen to run into. Again, there's space for Souček to move in. The movement of Scamacca can also take the central centre-back with him to again create a larger space between the centre-back and the left-sided centre-back. This again will create that space in which for the likes of Souček to roam into. We also again have the width with Emerson. Paqueta, where we've got him, obviously he can come across a bit more. He's putting him slightly in a position where he is able to counter if we was to lose possession and the ball falls, say, to their right midfielder. Obviously, Rice sitting deep, where he can then either drop into the back three, or again, he can just then watch their centre attacking midfielder. But ultimately, what this will allow us to do is to, again, have many numbers forward to start going 1v1 against their players, also start to create potential opportunities for 2v1. So, for instance, the pass into Soufal could then be played directly down the line for Bowen, who is making an underlap. If we have the likes of Souček then bursting in that gap, because the left-sided centre-back is going to have to come across to cover, that is going to create huge space between the two centre-backs. And then we essentially have one centre-back for them who is going to have a 2v1 with the likes of Souček and Scamacca. That could mean that their right-sided centre-back has to come across in which to help cover. Again, that then creates space for Benrahma, which then can cause their right-back to have to come in much more, and then leaves Emerson completely clear on the left-hand side. So by being brave, by being adventurous, and by being aggressive, we can really start to cause them problems with that back line. Obviously, that is it's a big ask for David Moyes to be that open and that flexible. But what will be interesting is that we resist the temptation to do what we did against Frankfurt last season. They played a very similar kind of style and a very similar formation. And we got found out because we went essentially like for like. We tried to play 5 at the back and we weren't as comfortable as they were. So we are in a situation where we should probably stick to our back four. It means that we have some balance. Again, that midfield three will give us the security we need, because we'll have the likes of Rice who can sit in the middle and watch their attacking midfielder. Again, we then have essentially a 2v2 situation in the sense of Paqueta and Souček will be going against their midfield too as well. So again, it gives us a bit more balance. by utilising our wingers as inverted, again, we can start to put real pressure on their back three, and it can also potentially help us when we look to press, when we look to kind of stop them from playing out from the back, because that is one of the things that they love to do. They love to play out from the back. Now, they are, much like we've seen with the likes of Brighton and other teams now, where they're far more comfortable accepting pressure, receiving the ball in tight spaces and playing out for the back. Again, is a team very much like that. They're very happy to invite pressure when in possession and play out from the back. We can stand off them. We can allow them to space, or we can be very kind of slow in our press. But if we do that, we have to be aware that they are not afraid in which to break lines. They will take chances with their passing. So obviously, the easy pass would be out to their right wing back. The centre midfielder is obviously blocked off on the right-hand side. So the only real option is either a aggressive kind of pass into the forward, or by kind of playing a very simple pass into the right back. What they will try and do, they will try to be aggressive. So we have to be aware of our placement. We have to ensure that we're in a position to press the receiver, but then also ensure that we are pressing the player in possession, in which to limit their opportunities in which to do so. Now, and in this sequence, they go from back to front very quickly, and they create a numerical advantage, and they almost exploit Bruges in this instance. So obviously it's played into their centre forward, who lays it back into midfield. But obviously what's happened is, because they have the free up front, they can obviously spread a bit more, which meant the centre forward moved over more to the left side, which draws out the left back, which again means once he lays the ball back, he's able to spin and go back into that space. So he's created a space for himself. It also then means that the left centre back has to move across, which then gives opportunity for Orban to then start to drift into the space between the left centre back and the right centre back. You also then have on the centre attacking midfielder who's completely free again, who can then start to come further over to the left hand side. So one of the disadvantages with the back four is that it can draw players out of position. This is where the likes of Rice are going to be incredibly important, in which to sit maybe a little bit deeper than before, so then he can slot into that back three at any point, or back four at any point. So one player goes out, he's able then to drop into that position to nullify and help us to resolve the potential issue. Now, obviously, this is a very quick piece of play. When the ball is laid back into Desart, he obviously lost the ball through into the middle for Orban. Again, the left centre back is unaware of him on his shoulder. The right centre back again is in a fairly decent position, has enough pace to kind of keep up. As long as we have the likes of Zuma and again fit, their pace, whilst it is good, shouldn't be something we should be hugely concerned over, because they have good pace as well as positioning. Whilst the situation is going to be a threat for us, because if we play a high line, they are going to be happy also to play this more direct football. They're quite happy to soak up pressure, play the ball along the floor, but they're also adept in also varying their play and then looking to hit the ball long and looking for the likes of Orban over the top and to utilise his pace. Rice is going to need to be aware of his positioning, not get drawn to the ball, and really kind of be looking to keep tracks on where he is, because he is a player that will drift into those pockets. And again, as we saw against Frankfurt, the player that we really struggled with was with Kamada. He did this fantastically all game, just drifted into those little pockets behind the midfield, behind Declan Rice. And obviously at that time we were playing as a double pivot. Now if we play with the three-man midfield, it does also give us that extra bit of security, and means that Rice can then be utilised in which to stifle and nullify Hung, who is going to be looking to drift into those little pockets. So it gives that extra support to the defence that we're going to need. If we play, say, a double pivot, we go to a back five and play that, then they are going to have that numerical advantage in midfield. They're going to have a player who is consistently playing just in that pocket, which then means that we either have to commit a centre-back to come out, which then means, again, we're back to a 2v2 situation against the two centre forwards. Obviously, we have a centre back that has to then constantly come out of the line to follow Hong. if we go that way, or we're then saying that one of our midfielders has to sit very deep, and then that again can create much separation and also mean that it leads to a 2v1 for, say, Paqueta against Dissart and Coombs. We have to be sensible. Personally, I feel that the 4-3-3 formation that we have been playing is best suited. It will bring the best out of us in an attacking sense, and it will also ensure and enable us to have that security out of possession as well. So we do need to be aware of how they will play out from the back. And if we allow them too much space, they can look to pass through the lines if we are just looking to hold our shape. If we're just going to hold shape, they could potentially play through us because they do have good ball passes. Now, whilst they're good from playing at the back, they will make mistakes in the game. So as long as we are pressing at the right times and we're pressing as a unit, we will be able to start to win the ball off them. So the way in which we pressed Larnaca, particularly in the second leg, what that will then do is if we close out those passing lanes, force them to be a bit more, aggressive in longer passes, taking maybe more low percentage passes to which to play out. We will start to review. We will start to turn over possession, and we will be able to start attacking their back line. Probably good to talk about their potency in transition. So in this example, they win the ball in their own half from a bit of loose play. And again, it's because they look to play with the 3 men up top or 2 centre forwards and attacking midfielder. Their right back or right wing back is pushed up very high as well. It does mean if they win the ball in a position like this, it becomes incredibly advantageous. Now, obviously, Istanbul played a back 4, and this is one of the examples where they were caught out by their positioning. And this was essentially a spell which led to their downfall, where they conceded 3 to 4 goals in rapid succession. And as we said, Orban got himself a hat-trick in 4 minutes. When they win the ball back, it's played directly into the open space. So that's not something that they do. They will not just dribble for dribble's sake. They will tend to like to utilise the ball and use the ball more than just kind of dribbling the ball themselves. Now, obviously, as they progress down the wing, it's played across goal for Hong, who comes in to collect possession. Obviously, the 2 centre-backs, their momentum doesn't allow them to stop or turn. Obviously, their back is to the danger as well. They're not aware of Orban on the left shoulder. Also, they're not aware of Hong as well. So this is a game where we talked about the importance of Declan Rice to either drop into that back 3 or to be sitting there and marshalling the movements of Hong. Because obviously, if you have a player like Declan Rice who is sitting in that position, this potential transition is stopped at this point. We retain possession and we're able to play out in safety or move away. Obviously, in this case here, Istanbul do not have that type of player. And what ultimately happens is Hong receives possession. He moves into the box and draws in, obviously, the defenders, and is able then to play a pass into the feet of Orban, who is completely unmarked, and then finishes very calmly with his left foot past the goalkeeper, who had absolutely zero chance. Orban has a very clean strike. So if he is given an opportunity like that, the likelihood is, in the form he is in, he will score. He's a very clean striker of the ball, and we have to be aware that we can't give away those types of chances. So in transition, we have to be very much switched on, because they do have pace and they are going to look to hit and exploit us in that kind of way. So we're going to always have to ensure that the likes of Declan Rice is sitting a bit deeper, maybe has to play a bit more of a reserved role. Or if he is to go forward, if Souček is playing, then Souček has to drop into that slot. Essentially, we have to be switched on and alert defensively as to that extra player, because this is something that we did see, as I've said it again, that we did see against Frankfurt, where we really struggled, because they always had a player that was able to sit in that little gap. They were able to essentially ghost into the area. They were able to pick up these pockets of space. And as soon as they were able to get that ball into feet, we were in trouble and we were on the back foot, because essentially what they had was then 2 players directly on our centre-backs and another one progressing at pace with the ball. So we need to ensure that we are covering ourselves in transition. The reason they also, that the formation they have allows them to kind of create numerical advantages in the final third. And because they have a number of players pushed forward, it means that once they lose the ball, they have players in an advanced position in which to press the opponent. So as you can see in this shot here, they obviously have their 3 kind of attacking players, 2 midfielders in good position, and obviously they have their right wing back pushed up high. Now, as Bruges are about to play out, and I believe the ball's going to play to Vanaken, Vanaken is unaware of what's coming in behind. So this, again, is something where we can look to exploit. Because if Vanaken was to take possession of the ball, maybe turn into his left, he has a midfielder who's directly behind their midfield line. He also has at least another 2 players ahead in that inside left space. If his touch is secure, if his turn is tight, he's able to then turn and play the ball. Now, in this instance, he doesn't scan to see if there's any potential danger. They will look to press aggressively. When the ball is played with Vanaken, he doesn't scan, he's not aware of the dangers, and he does take a heavy touch as he turns around. And that allows then a turnover of possession. Once the ball is turned over, what we can then see is that they have, a couple of passing triangles essentially that they can look to utilize. Again, they have a 3v2 on the right-hand side. 5 versus 4 in this one example. Now, obviously in this situation, they obviously win the ball and then they're able to play directly down the line. The likes of Hong obviously are in a good position. They're the right wing back. Inverts. Orban is on the top right, where he obviously drags out a defender. The defensive midfielder is drawn then to the right wing back who's inverted and takes possession, and Hong is able to drive in behind. A good bit of tackling in the end from Bruges, but again, it highlights the fact that they will be quick with the ball. They will be aggressive. They will be having players running from deep. So if a player does step out, others have got to be aware of those runners in which to stop their influence and to stop them from getting at us as a team. So again, this is not to say that this is going to cause us untold problems. We are a Premier League team. We are used to high pressing teams. But as we've seen when we play the likes of, say, Brighton, we tend to struggle playing through teams. We do tend to struggle where a team is aggressive in the press. So we are going to have to accept that this is a team that is going to be looking to constantly hit us. They aren't going to try and allow us much time. That may be a different story in the second leg, but in the first leg, they are definitely not going to be playing with too much fear. They will at times sit within their shape. They tend to hold their shape really well, which again makes it difficult to break them down because obviously they have essentially, in most cases, a numerical advantage in the area. But there are ways in which and avenues we can get into them. Now, they are not necessarily always the best team when it comes to defending crosses. Most of the goals have come from goals conceded have come through crosses into the area, and then players winning headers and so on, or obviously cutbacks as well. So there are avenues in which we can go. As I say, we can invert our wingers and utilise our fullbacks aggressively, which is why hopefully we have Soufal back, because obviously he's far more adept in getting forward, and the quality of his delivery has improved as this season's gone on. Obviously, Emerson as well is a far better attacking left-sided player than what we have as well. So if we can have those two in operation, we can then obviously push those forward. Declan Rice in a midfield three can obviously then drop into the defence if we need to make it a defensive three out of possession. And obviously we have Souček and Paqueta, who have, again, Souček is very good as a forward presser and as a defensive unit. Paqueta is very strong in possession. And obviously if we're able to bring in the likes of Bowen and Ben Rama, that means we have greater support to our centre forward, whoever that may be. If it is the likes of Scamacca will enjoy the fact that he has Ben Rama, he has Bowen, who are going to be making either forward runs in behind, or at least to have one go behind, one in front that he can link play to. Obviously, Paqueta will be looking to link up and roam as well. So there are multiple ways in which to get around it. It's probably a game, actually, which is really well suited for the likes of Lanzini, because they are not necessarily a massively physical team. So having someone, say, like Lanzini in place of Souček could probably be a really good idea to have, to then having obviously two very good ball players in Paqueta and Lanzini. Rice then do the defensive unit, again, who can spray the passes, who can link play and give us that extra bit of solidity, because we're not necessarily having to worry about the physical side of the game. in terms of that midfield battle. I would probably pump towards having the likes of, say, a Lanzini to help us then create, to pull their defence around, to probe. And as we've also seen over the last probably 18 months, the defensive side of Lanzini has vastly improved and he will work for the team. So that's probably personally where I would go as a team selection for us, because I think that probably gives us more of a chance. Now, again, if we're looking to close out a game, or if we're looking to be, more of a threat at set pieces, or looking to kind of cross the ball more, then obviously Souček is a valid kind of player to go for. I think Scamacca or Antonio is probably a better player. I think maybe playing a fox in the box type of Danny Ings is maybe something we do as a sub, as opposed to how we start, because again, we need players that are going to be involved in play. What is also going to be interesting is how, when we are having attacking set pieces, unlike most teams, they actually leave a player up front. So this is obviously them defending a set piece. This obviously being just a standard free kick. But number 20 is obviously Orban. So again, they're looking for that pace. So something we need to be mindful of, something we don't see very often in the Premier League, is a team that puts a man up top when they are defending. They also have one of their attackers and a midfielder actually in the wall as well. So again, their idea is if they win possession, they can then get 3 players pushed up front very quickly. What that also does as a tactic, which is also very smart, is it means that we have to commit less players into the area. So it kind of, again, nullifies any threat that we have from a set piece. This is something that I've often wanted West Ham to do, because the moment you put players out of the box and essentially on the opposition's halfway line, that means that then they have a decision. They either commit and put players up there and take the chance that you maybe will have a 2v2 or even a 2v1 situation, or they put players back, and that means they have less threats in the area. They can put less players forward. This is something a few seasons back we saw with Leicester. To nullify our threat, they put their 3 fast players on our halfway line. That meant we had to put 3 defenders back. That meant we had to also drop another midfielder back. So all of a sudden, we have 4 players who would arguably be up in the area, or at least 3 players who would normally be in here are no longer there. So it nullifies threat. It's a clever tactic, in which means you have to then bring players back. Because of Orban's pace, that logically means that we probably then put 2 players on the halfway line. We drop another player in midfield. So all of a sudden, rather than having, say, 8 players kind of in the area, or 7 or 8 players, we're then maybe looking at 6 players in the area. So again, our quality and our delivery has to be far better. We have to ensure that we are then being even more accurate and deadly. So we have to prepare to essentially work with less when we normally work with more, because in the Premier League, very rare we'll see a team put strikers or put players on the halfway line. But we're going to leave it there. I hope you guys liked the video today. Hopefully you've learned something about Ghent. It is going to be, I'm under no illusions, I do not believe it's going to be as easy as some think. They are a highly organised team, but there are routes and avenues in which we can exploit. They do have some good players, in particular Orban, who we should be doing a video on as well, to kind of go through as to what type of player he is, who he is, and why he is arguably their star player. We'll look to have that out as well very soon. But, let's be confident. This is a team that, yes, we should be beating. But we will only beat them if we go with them with the right attitude, if we look to nullify their strengths, and if we look to then obviously put our extra quality upon them, then we really should be looking to progress into the next stage, where in the next round we can be meeting AZ Alkmaar, or we could be meeting Anderlecht. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, please do like, please do subscribe. It really does help us. We are trying to get to our first benchmark, really, of 500 kind of subs. So please do like, please do subscribe, and we'll be dropping more stuff over the coming weeks. So we've got a bit of a break now before the season starts, but until then, come on, you Irons.